Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spend My Vacation. I know that I've recently been reviewing a bunch of movies based on nostalgic animated series, but I'm honestly surprised that I find myself in a position where I'm about to look into Tiny Toons. While the series had its original run back in the early 1990s, I remember when I was a kid that I used to watch reruns of Tiny Toon Adventures alongside some of the other Warner Brothers animated series at the time, like Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, and the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. Sure, I may be known as a Disney guy all my life, but the Looney Tunes were equally as present throughout my childhood, both with the classic cartoons and the modern shows in the 1990s. However, when it came to the latter, while I do remember watching some of the episodes, I wouldn't say that Tiny Toons was among my favorite shows as a kid. Of course I didn't hate it, but I remember having a lot more fun with Animaniacs. However, looking back at it now as an adult, I do appreciate what it did and how it played a role in making the 90s a golden era for television animation. It's a unique twist to not just the iconography of the Looney Tunes, but also to that popular trend at the time where almost every franchise needed their own version of Muppet Babies by making younger versions of popular characters. Except this time, it's students who aspire to become the next generation of the Toons. And while its time on TV only lasted for about 2 years, it was still able to release almost 100 episodes and had their own feature with How I Spend My Vacation in 1992, which was actually the first direct-to-home media animated movie in the US. Seriously, this was from a time long before all those straight-to-video Disney sequels existed. People were in for a shock after they bought the video when they found out that they were watching an entirely new movie at home instead of a bunch of already existing episodes.
So how do we stop this thing?
We don't.
So long, Acme Acres!
Hello, adventure!
But now that we're about to spend the summer with the Acme Looniversity kids, will this feel like going to Happy World Land? Or should the movie go back to school and get some better grades? Let's find out. The story. When the kids are officially out of school, the movie becomes this anthology story to show the variety of summer activities that the characters get themselves in. There's Buster and Babs Bunny, whose water gun fight turns into a river adventure across the American South, where they have to escape from getting into the hands of hungry predators that they meet along the way.
Good evening, ladies. Look, they want us to stay for dinner.
For dinner or as dinner?
Meanwhile, Plucky Duck joins Hampton J. Pig and his family on a road trip to Happy World Land, where the journey to get there with these pigs turned out to be a bigger challenge than he ever expected.
66 bottles of non-alcoholic beverage on the wall. 66 bottles of non-alcoholic beverage on the wall. 66 bottles.
Sheesh, the Von Trapp family they ain't.
Then there's Fifi LaFume, who stops at nothing to be with her celebrity crush Johnny Pugh.
All my life I have had but one dream, to meet Johnny Pugh, the skunk movie star of my dreams. Let me get a clear look at your aura. I'm getting something. Johnny Pugh is heading toward the Acme Resort Hotel.
Shirley the Loon gets dragged to go on a movie date with Foulmouth.
You just gotta go to the dadgum movies with me, Shoyo, please!
Oh, all right.
See? The girls just can't dadgum resist me.
And Elmira Duff goes to a drive-through zoo and gets out of the car to torture all the animals with her love.
You don't have to yell. I know what you want. You want a haircut!
However, it's worth noting that not all the stories are presented equally. It's mainly the plots with Buster and Babs and Plucky and Hampton that get most of the screen time, while the others occasionally come in on the side to bring in their familiar material to spice up the feature. Also, there are times when the stories can cross over each other and have elements from one find their way to another. But that doesn't really affect the whole narrative in general, and at most, they're to help bring the payoffs of some of the gags go in a different direction.
Ooh, I got myself a kitty. Hello, my stinky kitty head. Say hello to Mommy Elmira.
Oh, no!
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, this is the kind of movie where the storytelling is not among the movie's main missions. Instead, it rather prioritizes the comedy and to deliver as many crazy jokes as it can in under 80 minutes. I know that this is usually something that I take down points for, but when it comes to how I spend my vacation, this direction makes perfect sense. After all, Tiny Toon Adventures is a Looney Tunes spin-off, and what made the series a 90s classic was how it captured the spirit of the old cartoons and gave it a bit of a modern twist to deliver a fresh take on the familiar style of comedy that made the Toons the animation legends we know them today. Making this a feature-length cartoon is actually the right move for a Tiny Toons movie, because it lets them freely present what they do best and emphasize who they are to both regular fans to have them quickly be on board with this, and for newcomers to have a good idea of what the Tiny Toons are all about.
I knew this water thing to Babsy throughout the entire video.
But the big catch from this is that the film can only be as good as its comedy. In How I Spend My Vacation, it does its best to be as bombastic as the Looney Tunes by offering a wide variety of gags, from slapstick, to the character's wit, to breaking the fourth wall, to the over-the-top scenarios, to pop culture references. In general, I consider the feature's comedy to be just good. I won't say that this was a hilarious feature, but I'll give it that there are slightly more hits than there are misses. It really depends on which story has the better gags, because the personalities and the types of jokes that they deliver are significant factors to how enjoyable this movie can get. And it does happen when the scenarios can seem cute at first, but then it gradually gets repetitive and annoying the more they keep trying with some running gags like Elmira torturing the animals, or Foulmouth talking his way into trouble.
I'll have one giant tub of dadgum corn, 2 wieners, hold of dadgum mustard. Goopers or raisinets? Goopers or raisinets? Ain't that the eternal question? Guess I'll never know the eternal answer.
Also, when it comes to the pop culture references, keep in mind that this came out in 1992. I'm not saying that these types of jokes are bad here, and some are easy to know what they're referring to, but there are times that they can really date this movie. And if you're younger than a millennial, there's a strong chance that most of them will fly over your head. Thankfully, most of those only show up during the Fifi segments, but they can have some seriously deep 90s cuts.
It isn't over till the fat lady sings.
Or the land of the free and the home of the brave.
If you actually got that reference just by watching it, you deserve an achievement. But unfortunately, I must diagnose you with old.
This may be a bit more difficult than I imagined.
However, there is one plot that stands out from the rest that has all the funniest moments of the film, and that's with Plucky and Hampton. This is where the movie makes the most out of the Looney Tunes style humor, and is the most over the top as Plucky constantly suffers from Hampton's family and their style of traveling on the road. I'm honestly glad that this is one of the main stories, because whenever they come up, they're always a bright spot where I know they'll make me laugh with turning those little relatable road trip activities into wacky situations.
Yum. Mayo and cream cheese on white with the crust cut off. My favorite. They bring their own food to the drive-in. I don't believe this family.
It made the right move to be more of a cartoon than to fully tell a story, but the experience can be a little mixed. Depending on the segments, there are some that are okay, some can lose their flavor rather quickly, and others that know how to deliver a good laugh. It's obvious that some are better than others, but the movie is still fun overall to showcase many opportunities for gags to make the most out of its theme of summer vacation and what could happen throughout that time. It can be quite chaotic, but that's why you should expect the unexpected in a Tiny Toon summer. The animation. Throughout the production of Tiny Toon Adventures, the team at Warner Brothers hired a variety of different studios from across the world to help provide the animation of the series at a lower cost. These include South Korea's Acom Productions, Taiwan's Wang Film Productions, Chicago's Star Toons International, New Zealand's Freelance Animators, and Toronto's Kennedy Cartoons, whose overuse of squash and stretch looks like you're watching this show through a fish tank. But when it comes to how I spend my vacation, that was done by Japan's Tokyo Movie Shinsha, or TMS, who worked on 19 of the 98 episodes of the show. And they made a good choice to go with them because the animation on its own actually doesn't look bad. Sure, it's about the same quality as you get in the series, but in the context that this was released directly to home media, the craftsmanship in this does have some things to admire. If this were a theatrically released feature, then this would look underwhelming. But Steven Spielberg made the right move to send it directly to people's homes, so it does make it more forgivable that it doesn't look on par than what you'd get at the time like Fievel Goes West or Beauty and the Beast.
Wrong cartoon.
But going into the actual animation, I'll just get my criticisms out of the way first and say that it does show how this has a lower budget for an animated movie, mainly from the limitations of the scale. Despite some characters traveling far and going into big places, most of the show can only have a few people at a time, or a few that can actually move, while the areas that the kids get into are mostly simple places like a field, or a beach, or a swampy river, or a movie theater, and that's it. For the most part, since it has to work with the same materials that it does with the series, it can't afford to look anything more than an extended episode of the show.
You know, Babsy, in this moonlight, you look just like Maury Amsterdam. Maury Amsterdam!
But again, that's only what holds it back from looking great. Even with basic concepts, the animation team still made the most of what they could do. As simple as the backgrounds are, they are nicely painted to capture the feel of the environments for the characters to stand on. And there are those rare occasions where they find themselves in some creative places like Happy World Land.
Welcome to a land where the fun never stops. We have 6 thrill rides and 400 gift shops. The smiles are always rosy, the sky is always blue. This is Happy World Land where all your dreams come true.
But the one element that its limitations cannot hold back is the character animation and how loony some of the characters and the comedy can go. However, this is another case by case depending on the personalities on screen. On average, it embraces the Looney Tunes style zaniness with plenty of over-the-top moments to pull off some slapstick gags, and many of the better jokes are when they get more physical with the scenes.
Hey, Shirley, how's about going to the dadgum movies with me?
Like, go bowl for dollars.
But when it comes to their execution, safe to say that some are better than others. I get that the cast has to stay true to themselves, but their traits can be the one thing holding the comedy back from being at its most effective and not able to really play around with the animation to be as bombastic as a cartoon like this can be. This is mainly why I enjoy the Plucky and Hampton segments the most. Those characters are the type who can afford to go all out with their reactions and get themselves in crazy situations like having a psychopath in their car. Sure, you can get a bit of those as well with Buster and Babs, especially when they can embrace the nonsensical, but they try more to imitate Bugs Bunny, which sets a limit to how nuts they can be. With the Duck and the Pigs, on the other hand, that's when the movie is at its silliest with Plucky's reactions and his attempt to survive the ride with Hampton's family. It's largely thanks to the animation why this story arc feels the most like an actual Looney Tunes cartoon and can be as funny as one.
Here they come.
There's a car, 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 there's a car. Fun game.
I'd like to also add that the music is another factor to how the Tiny Toons capture that Looney Tunes feel. Mainly with how there's more emphasis to how that is used to move the narrative forward and play up the mood of the moments. It didn't have to go extra with the score, but it's a nice touch to be in the spirit of those classic cartoons.
Roasting in the sun.
By the standards of an animated feature, the animation is okay. But for something from the Tiny Toons, this is one of their better looking moments. And when they can really go crazy, they make the most to be entertainingly wild as a genuine Looney Tunes cartoon. It's not the most visually memorable vacation, but the animation will give you some nice sights along the way. The characters. Regardless if you know Tiny Toon Adventures or not, it's easy to identify which characters are the younger spin-offs of the specific Looney Tune, and have matching personalities for that familiarity. On top of that, another strong trait of the series that also carried over to How I Spend My Vacation is that it features a great cast of who are now known as legendary voice actors, including Charlie Adler, Tress MacNeille, Joel Lasky, Maurice LaMarche, Rob Paulsen, Kath Soucie, Cree Summers, Frank Welker, Dawn Messick, and more. And on top of making their roles playful and have their personalities feel very bold, most of them get to show off their talent by doing multiple voices in the feature and getting some funny moments of their own with their wonderful performances.
We hope you are enjoying Wild Safari Zoo. May I repeat so that Warner Brothers won't get sued if anyone really does this. Do not get out of the car!
But when it comes to the characters themselves, as this is more like a cartoon, they mostly got their one trait that they adopted from the Looney Tunes to go with. They can add a little extra twist to make themselves stand out, or emphasize that they are the kid equivalent of those big names, but their roles are only as strong as the comedy that they deliver. I'm not going to go over all of the Tiny Toons, of course, just the ones who got the spotlight in the movie. Starting off with Buster and Babs, they're the smart Alecs who may get themselves in trouble, especially when they started their summer by fighting each other with water, but they always find creative ways to get themselves out of those situations while also keeping up their rivalry.
It took long enough.
I was enjoying watching you sweat.
They also have a little fling from time to time to show how their playful fights is a hint to how they can have feelings for each other. That's why I'll say now that it's best to forget the context of the reboot. Yes, they're traveling across the South, but that doesn't mean that we should think that this is normal sibling behavior.
Howdy, Buster and Babs Bunny here, no relation.
Then, for the side plots, there's Fifi LaFume, the hopeless romantic who pursues to be with her celebrity crush and do anything to get his attention.
I would die for you.
I know, but that won't be necessary. You can just carry my stuff.
Shirley is hippie-minded, who's more into alternative solutions, that reluctantly goes out with Foulmouth, who talks so much that he's more focused on his own words than what's happening around him.
Dear Shirley,
Come on, Cheryl. It's dadgum movie time.
Mondo Dragola.
And Elmira is a little girl that loves animals to the point of playing with them like they're dolls. Yes, the way she handles them is inhumane, but she does show a bit that she is aware of her own actions, and that she loves being a sadistic little troll.
And the most feared predator in the jungle is me.
But of course, I have to save the best for last with Plucky and Hampton. Plucky shares Daffy's ego, where he uses that as a mask to hide his deep insecurity, but takes it off quick after learning that his pig friend is going to his dream destination of Happy World Land. The good news is that Hampton's parents is happy to bring him along for the ride, but the catch is how he has a hard time adapting to the family's happy-go-lucky bonding time in their car.
Hey, the game's over, Uncle Stink. King.
Another reason why their part in the film works so well is that Plucky and Hampton feel very much like the spiritual successors of Daffy and Porky, along with capturing their dynamic. You got Hampton, who's like the straight man that is happy to be along for the ride and things always go well for him, while Plucky always ends up as the butt of the joke, where he learns the hard way that their bond can be a risk to his mentality or even his life. The other characters may try to follow the footsteps of those cartoon icons, but these two are the ones who got it right and responsible for carrying most of the picture.
I miss school.
It's important to note that these are not the Looney Tunes. The concept of who they are is that they are studying to become like them. And just like real students, there are some who accelerate in their class more than others. However, while their comedic material may vary, they all feature some great voice acting whose admirable talent provide their roles with a unique charm that makes them enjoyable to watch just by how lively they can be with their personalities. They may only be a little loony, but the Tiny Toons do know how to have some cartoony fun. I'll admit that this one is most likely for the older crowd who have fond memories of the show, but this movie is not a bad choice to spend on your vacation. Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spend My Vacation, is a fun animated feature that takes the formula of the popular 90s series and extends it to feature length to create a big Looney Tunes style cartoon themed to how kids spend their time during their summer break. As a movie that shares the same quality as the TV show it's based on, it does have some limitations that doesn't make this spectacular, and I cannot promise that you'll be laughing the entire time, but even on its own, it's still enjoyable where most of the comedy, the animation, and the characters themselves are solid enough to be entertaining, while also providing some amazing voice acting. Like I said, I do find that fans of the series and those nostalgic for the 1990s are the ones who will get the most enjoyment out of this one, but I also think that people not familiar with the Tiny Toons might get along with this too. Sure, they may not get into it as much as the fans do, but as long as they know the Looney Tunes, I can imagine that they could get on board with it as a spin-off. Either way, I consider this to be a decent watch if you want to enjoy a long, wacky cartoon. And if you enjoyed this review, then give this a like and come subscribe to my channel. I got a lot more animation-related videos that you could spend your vacation on. I won't say that this movie made me feel like being a kid on summer break, but as a movie based on an animated series that went straight to video, it's the kind of seasonal fun that you'd expect from the Tiny Toons. Hey guys, this is Animat, and like I said at the beginning, I remember when I was a kid growing up in the 90s that I used to watch a bit of the Tiny Toons, or at least some of it. I won't just say a bit, because I did watch this more than some of the other Warner Brothers animated shows at the time. Like, honestly, I know I listed a bunch of them, but like some might ask about Tasmania. And honestly, I don't recall watching much of that show in particular. Again, I gravitated more towards stuff like Animaniacs, the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, and this is not even to mention watching all the classic cartoons, whether it be through VHS tapes or with the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show. But with Tiny Toon Adventures, that was also among the mix as well. And it may not necessarily be my favorite amongst the 90s fanfare of the Looney Tunes that they were bringing out at the time, but there definitely were some enjoyable moments that they offered. And again, it does depend on which animation studio did animate that particular episode, because I think it is safe to say that some are better than others. Like, probably some of the more memorable ones would be from the episodes by TMS compared to the ones by Kennedy, because yeah, even as a child, like I always thought like the animation from Kennedy is just really weird and really wobbly, with everybody animated in a way that they're made out of Jello. But with the Tiny Toons though, I actually did recall that even when I was a kid, I remember watching How I Spent My Vacation. And funny enough, I think like when looking back at my childhood, it makes a lot of sense when watching it now that my favorite moments were from the Plucky and Hampton segments, considering that those were the ones that I remember the most from the movie, even back when I was a kid. Like, honestly, with all the other segments, like with Buster and Babs, or Fifi and Shirley and Elmira, like, honestly, I didn't recall that much in terms of what happened, but with Plucky and Hampton, like, they easily had the best moments and the funniest moments, and I recall a lot of the gags because they were very enjoyable. I enjoyed them very much as a kid, and I still very much enjoy them now. And I think like that's a major reason why it got the rating that it did, because yeah, I was like so for like all the other segments, but with those, honestly, I think with Plucky and Hampton, their parts in the feature is the reason why I actually had fun with it, and why I think it would even be worth revisiting. Even if there are some gags that I will say, like especially with the pop culture references, there are times that I do question if there are going to be some of those gags that I wonder if anybody under 30 would actually get those jokes in the first place. So yeah, there is a little bit of a dated aspect to it. But still, though, like if you are familiar with the Looney Tunes, and even if you have a little bit of an idea of what the Tiny Toons are, rather it be through different internet videos that you've watched, or even if you might be familiar with it through the reboot with Looniversity, then honestly, I think you'll have a good time. And I know that this is the kind in which fans would definitely appreciate it, maybe even more than I do. Like, if you grew up with Tiny Toon Adventures, if you love the series as a kid, you'll definitely have an awesome time with this, or even revisiting it, because if you watch the show then, you probably have also seen How I Spent My Vacation. But still, though, overall, it's just a fun time to go and revisit and re-experience How I Spent My Vacation. And hopefully you all had a good time with this review and looking back at this movie as well. All right, but anyways, with all that said and done, now that we are finished with How I Spent My Vacation, it is now time that we shall go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time we got a request from Miss Spark. So, before I go and tell you what the next review is, let me go and tell you that if you would like to be like Miss Spark and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to watching my videos before anyone else and unedited, uncut, like a different version than what you would go and get on YouTube, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, now with that said, what is it that Miss Spark went and requested me? What is it that she wants me to look into for the next review? Well, for this one, coincidentally enough, this is actually another movie based on an animated series. But this is going to be a lot more different, however, considering that the series that I'm talking about is actually an anime. And this is actually a pretty popular anime, or at least the main character is actually quite popular, especially in Japan. But I will admit, I've heard about this character, but I'm not as familiar with this one in particular. And by the way, I know that with this one, this character spawned many different animated movies, but in this case here, I'll just say now that I'm going to be watching movie number 2 here. But still, even though that I will be starting with the second, this will be my personal introduction to Lum the Invader Girl. Oh, and I do hope I pronounced her name correctly. If not, then I promise I'll be sure to say it right when it's time to actually get into that review.
I'm free! Free! Free at last! I'm absolved! Released! Exculpated! Free! I flew the coop!